Well, welcome to Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. I'm Owen James, your host. Please smash that like and obviously smash the sub as well. Well, we're going to talk about the departure of our Academy Director, Zeb Jacobs, which is a huge, huge loss to the club. I know some people might not realise this, but Jacobs is a very impressive individual who, you know, in the interviews that I've seen with him and the plans that I've seen that he has in place, it is a massive loss for the club. We're also going to talk about the possible departure of Goldson in the summer. Rumours have it that the Saudis are also interested not only in our captain, James Tavernier, but also in our veteran defender, Goldson. And Craig Robertson, speaking at the CEO Fans Forum, talked about the fact that there are already moves in place working towards Niels Koppen's target for the summer. Well, let's start off with the news that Academy Director Zeb Jacobs, who was only appointed near the start of this season, has already agreed a move away from the club. No reason has been given yet as to why he has agreed this move away. But despite the fact that he was being allegedly headhunted by Manchester City, who have one of the most formidable academies south of the border, he has decided to go to Holland and join Feyenoord and head up their academy. Now, Zeb Jacobs has been fundamental in modernising and changing Rangers Academy. Obviously, recruiting Zurab Almiron as the head coach of the academy. Jacobs, in a recent interview that I watched, and I did a video on it, I think, a little while back, talked about, you know, the individual training plans and the individual mental, psychological plans and all, all the other work that they were doing in terms of also the link that he developed with RB Leipzig as well, to do some exchange of players, to give our players a different experience coming up through the ranks. Now, Jacobs was brought in because of his outstanding record for youth talent identification and youth talent development. He'd worked for one of the foremost agencies in this, as well as obviously a number of other football clubs. Jacobs obviously hasn't even completed a year with Rangers and already has been headhunted by a number of top European clubs, which really is a mark of how well Jacobs was doing with Rangers. Now, this is, for me, a huge loss for the club, an absolutely ginormous loss for the club. You know, this man, I think, was genuinely looking at turning our youth setup into one of the best in the whole of Europe, the best in the whole of the world in terms of identifying young players, developing young players, and bringing them through, not only to sort of, perhaps, sell off to other clubs, but also to go into our first team. And given the paucity of talent that has kind of come through in recent years, yes, there's Nathan Patterson, Billy Gilmore, Ross McCausland, for example, but we really, as a club, as a top European side, are not generating the youth players that we should be, and losing Jacobs is a huge loss for the club. It leaves obviously a situation where Niels Koppen, where James Bisgrove, John Bennett, Philippe Clement, no doubt, will be involved as well, have a huge job in place to recruit a replacement for Zeb Jacobs. I think they'll be looking at someone in a similar sort of mold. It was kind of an interesting one, wasn't it, that we've got a Belgian manager, a Belgian director of recruitment, and a Belgian director of our academy in Jacobs, Koppen, and Clement. With the departure of Jacobs, obviously this does raise a gap. It does raise a question as to who will be brought in. Obviously, the club will look and obviously search around Europe to find the best possible candidate. But it is an absolutely massive loss for the club to lose someone like Jacobs, who has already started to have a very positive effect on what was going on in the youth system at Ibrox. Okay, so let's move it along. Now, according to reports in the media, now we know that former Rangers manager Steven Gerard, who is now the manager of Al Ettifaq in the Saudi Pro League. Yes, that Saudi Pro League. And look, yes, undoubtedly the Saudi Pro League pays an awful lot of cash. I get that. But in terms of competition level and in terms of, the league itself, it's a little bit of a joke. I think there was about 700 people at a recent game out there for Al Ettifaq. Jordan Henderson, obviously the England international, went out there but very quickly left. And there's been a number of players who've been out there and very quickly wanted to return to Europe and wanted to go and play in Europe. So According to reports, obviously, that I sort of brought out on the video the other day, that Stephen Gerard is interested in bringing in James Tavernier to Al Ettifaq to try and provide some experience and some leadership. The latest reports state that it is not only Tavernier that he is interested in, but also experienced Rangers defender Connor Goldson. Now, Connor Goldson was a fundamental part of Gerard's team whilst Gerard was here. Obviously, a fundamental part of 55 as well, forming a fantastic defensive partnership, often with Philippe Helander. Now, Goldson, who this season, let's face it, has not been in the best of form and was, in inverted commas, rested for the Cup semi-final on Sunday, has been in pretty poor form, and many people have kind of suggested that he is reaching the end of his time at Rangers. Now, others suggest that we do need to still maintain Goldson within the squad as an experienced defender, because I think, whilst there is a strong desire within the fan base, and I think also within the recruitment team as well, to refresh this squad and to rebuild this squad, you can't in effect chuck the baby out with the bathwater. Yes, we'd all love to see 10, 11, 12 players go out this summer, but realistically, do we have the budget? Do we have the funds? Do we have the ability to go and replace all those players? Or do we, do it and then obviously not have the money or the wherewithal to actually get these new players in, and we end up with a much weakened squad, or a squad not capable of coping with the demands of playing 50, 60 games a season. Now, I'm not for a minute suggesting that Connor Goldson should be a starter next season. I don't honestly believe that, given the huge drop off in his form and the fact that he is over 30. Realistically, he isn't going to develop. He isn't going to get any quicker. He isn't going to get any better. It's just not going to happen. Outfield players, as soon as they sort of pass 31, 32, do continue to kind of stagnate, and in some cases decline as players. So that's obvious. But according to reports, Al Ettifaq are interested in bringing not only Tavernier, but also Goldson out to Saudi. Now, in a recent interview that he gave on that podcast, that you listen to the podcast, guys, he talked about his desire to play on until he was 38 years old. Now, obviously, that's far more realistic out in Saudi than it is perhaps in Europe, given the demands that Rangers will face when playing in the Europa League or in the Champions League, or certainly against that lot from across the city, where Connor Goldson has on a number of occasions this season and last been found wanting when coming up against the team from the other part of the city. So look, Goldson to Saudi, is it a goer? Or is it just a story? I think the problem with this is, and whether you want Tav and Goldson to stay or whether you think we should maintain them both in the squad for experience, this report doesn't seem to be going away, and it is a report that continually seems to be coming up. And like I said in response to a comment the other day, this is confirmed by 2 to 3 fairly reliable sources that Al Ettifaq are plotting to bring Goldson and Tavernier to Saudi this summer. I think the situation is this, look, Rangers need to generate, not only do Rangers need to free up funds from within the business, within the club to help Philippe Clement and Niels Koppen to strengthen the squad this summer. This summer, the defence needs an overhaul. We need at least 1 to 2 new strikers. We need a new centre midfielder. We need another winger. There's a number of positions that do need to be addressed, particularly, like I said, a defensive overhaul. And money needs to be generated to allow this to take place. Not only does the club, like I said, need to free up, we need to sell players on. We need to be putting ourselves in a position where we are not constantly losing players at the end of their contract and getting nothing back for them, as we will often, I think, it's been suggested with Ryan Jack, with John Lundstrom, as it was last season with Helander and Morelos and Kent. So, look, the situation is quite clear. I think if a substantial enough bid comes in for Connor Goldson, say 5 to 10 million again, I'd be looking at taking it. If we could generate somewhere in the region of 10, 12, 15 million possibly from the sales of Tavernier and Goldson and add that into the summer budget, you could be looking at us having as much as 30 to 40 million pounds to redevelop this squad. And it's certainly something that is very much needed, I think, going forward. Now, according to CEO, according to, obviously not CEO, that's Jez Bisgrove, according to one of the members of Director of the Football Recruitment Board, Craig Robertson, speaking at the very recent Fans Forum at Edmiston House. Craig Robertson, who is Director of Football Operations, said there is a conversation on recruitment every day. When Niels came in, he reviewed the department and changed the structure and process. So we are in a strong place as we build towards the summer. A number of good conversations with active targets are underway. I cannot give any more detail right now. Ideally, we would like to bring in players early for the start of pre-season, although the Euros might slow the market slightly. Our intention is to be on the front foot and bring players in as early as we can, but we will need to remain agile to the market dynamics. That's what Robertson said at the recent fans forum. Now, it's encouraging that Koppen has already started to make changes to that football department, that he is developing the scouting side of it, developing the recruitment. And certainly I think what he's done so far in terms of bringing Cortez and Diamande, for example, does show very promising early signs. And I think one of the criticisms we've all had of recent Rangers transfer windows, particularly Michael Beale's, was the lack of seemingly good quality scouting and the lack of good quality player identification, and also the lack of ability to identify players who don't seemingly get injured all the time. It's certainly seemingly the hope is that Koppen and his team, Craig Robertson, Philippe Clement, all the people who are part of this recruitment team now are very much working towards a common goal for identifying these players that fit our trading model, these players that will come in and really develop this squad and take this squad on to the next level. Look, I'm getting clear stories that there will be funds available this summer. There will be a substantial amount of money available to Clement and Koppen this summer to go out and get players to redevelop this squad. And it's certainly encouraging to hear Craig Robertson talking about the fact that there are already good conversations, in his words, with active targets underway. There is again that desire, like I said, like there was last season, to bring in players early to make sure they are there for a full pre-season, which is very good business by Rangers. Guys, it is going to be a busy summer. It needs to be a busy summer. There are a number of players who do need to go out. There's a number of players who do need to come in my opinion, in a number of different positions. And I do hope there is no snobbery towards Scottish players. I do think we do need, and I hope Koppen and Clement are listening, to bring in a core of Scottish talent for our club that understand what it is to play for Rangers, understand the difficulties there are in the SPL for the old firm when they come up against other clubs. Well, guys, let me know what you think of the stories we've covered in this morning's video, or this afternoon's video, or this evening's video. Depends when you've, of course, watched it. Please, obviously, smash the like as well as the sub. The sub, obviously, to help the channel to keep on growing as we work towards our target of 6,000 subs by the end of the season. Guys, just a reminder of my prediction video that came out earlier. I did drop a video yesterday evening, talking about how Rangers are going to win the treble. Please, obviously, check that out as well. Okay, thank you for watching Glasgow Rangers Nation, guys. As always, if you could do me two favors on the way out. Number one, smash that like. It helps the video to grow. And number two, remember always, we are the people.